I think that people in this province and people in this community are starting to wake up that parties are looking after themselves and independents provide an opportunity to put your community first. So hopefully people are hearing that call. I hear it all the time at the doorstep, and it's important. Make your vote count, get out there, and let's keep working together.
Hello and welcome to the Citi-Zen-Ship show. My name is Clinton. We have a very exciting interview for you guys this morning. This is Incumbent Adam Walker, the MLA for the Oceanside and Ladysmith area. Adam, thank you so much for coming this morning.
Clinton, thanks so much for inviting me.
Now, we've met a few times. You're kind of active in the community, but for those individuals who are not aware, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I've lived in Qualicum Beach my whole life. I grew up here. I was previously a small business owner, and my parents, when they were my age, really stepped up in the community. We saw a lot of grassroots movements back then, the Civic Center in Qualicum Beach, Heritage Forest, the old schoolhouse. My parents were actively involved in these things. And so I was growing up able to see what happens when people can come together and focus on community. When my wife and I got together, had our first child, we wanted to raise her in this community. We've got a small farm in Qualicum Beach. I spent 2 years on Qualicum Beach Council. Was an incredible experience. You don't realize the depth of experience in this community, the number of people you can lean on to get ideas from and to work with to get things done until you're in a role like that. And then 2 years after that, I found myself as MLA for Parksville Qualicum. And, we had a lot of big challenges that we had to tackle head on, and we still do. Housing is a big problem. We got 12,000 people in this community without a family doctor on a wait list that's more than 3 years long. But we've made some good progress on those issues, and I know we'll get into those in a little bit here.
Awesome. That was a great introduction. Thank you. Let's talk about your time with the town. So that was 2018, I believe, right?
Yeah.
What first inspired you to get involved in politics?
So my grandfather was an MLA in Saskatchewan for 19 years. He was Attorney General. He worked with Tommy Douglas to get healthcare into this country. When the doctors went on strike because they didn't like this new model, he was right there, front and center, protecting these ideals and these values, and really helped set the frame for the public healthcare system that we have in this country. So I grew up with those stories, how you can have a positive impact on people's lives in a role like this. And when my kids were younger and they were able to go to school, I found myself with a little more free time. I wanted to, in the same way, give back to the community. Qualicum Beach at the time had a lot of vacant storefront. We had some challenges with families that were leaving. I still have that challenge today. And I wanted to bring that youthful voice and perspective to the Qualicum Beach Council. And it went a long way. Like, it was a great experience. We got a lot done in the community. And I just absolutely love this place that we call home.
That's wonderful. What were some of your big achievements from that 2 years on council?
I think the biggest one was the childcare center that we got in the community. When I was first elected, there was this group in town called ELCO, and they brought a provincial representative in, and the provincial rep said, we've got funding for childcare. We'll pay for 100% of the capital. We'll subsidize the operation. We just need land. And I took that back to council, and council said, well, that's not our responsibility, which, it wasn't at the time. And I respect that. But we pushed the envelope. I convinced council to refer this idea to a committee to write the grant, take the load off of staff, write the grant. Well, that committee was me and one other individual. We wrote the grant and we got that center, and it opened on my term as MLA. And there's 37 families now that are able to get affordable quality childcare in the community. We got the brew pub done in town. We always talked about the need to have something open after 7 o'clock in Qualicum Beach, and we have that now. 56 units of affordable housing in Qualicum Beach. That was something that started on my time on council. And now that I'm MLA, hearing from so many seniors that are renting in the community, that find themselves with an eviction notice, that have nowhere to turn other than their car or to leave the community. And so those 56 units, when they open, are going to be life-changing for a lot of people in this community. So those are sort of three high-level achievements that I think. But at the end of the day, it's about working with people, and those relationships I continue to foster today, and look forward to continuing on that journey.
And what was the rationale from transitioning from municipal politics to provincial politics in 2020?
It was a strange one. We were in the middle of COVID. This was not considered an NDP seat, and so being in the loop as far as politics goes. I was actually trying to get somebody else to run. I was encouraging someone else to get their candidacy forward. And my pitch to them was, we're in the middle of a pandemic. When we come out of this pandemic, we're going to have an opportunity to relook at everything that we've done in the past, relook at the way that the province is responsible for healthcare, for housing, for mental health, for some of the challenges that go on in the community. And the more I was encouraging this other person to run, the more I realized, well, maybe now's the time to step up in that role. And just timing and circumstance really was what led to that. It really stems from a need to serve the community, a desire to make this place better every single day.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you were trying to convince somebody else and you convinced yourself? Is that what happened?
I was trying to convince somebody else. There was challenges getting the paperwork in on time. I was in there on the second to last day to get your nomination. And I was at the elections office, and the Conservative candidate, him and I were sitting there filling out the forms, racing to get them in on the last day. Like it was a wild time, middle of COVID. Nobody knew what was going on. And like I was told by the party, don't worry, you're not going to get elected. And we did, like people realized that we wanted change in the community. We wanted a voice of someone here who was going to listen to the community.
Can you tell me a little bit more? I'm just kind of curious. We are going to get into the whole campaign side of things. But tell me a little bit more about the day-to-day life of a politician in Victoria. What's it like representing an area? Do you kind of have two sets of staff, one here in Qualicum, one set in Victoria? What does that kind of look like?
And I guess you have to sort of reflect on, there's different roles in Victoria. And so when you're in a governing party versus when you're independent, there is quite a contrast there. We don't go to Victoria as often as people think. So we're in Victoria maybe a third of the year. When I was in the party, they said you have to get down on a Sunday just in case you hit traffic, and you can't leave until this time. So it was a lot of time away from the family. The fact is that we're pretty close to Victoria here. We're about 2 hours away by car. And so, a regular sessional day is you'll sit there. It changes every day, but let's say from 9 to 5. And, you've got question period, you've got debate, you've got, the budget process. And so the goal is to basically bring those voices from your community as best you can through every opportunity in that chamber. And it's something that I've always enjoyed doing. Being independent, it allows you a lot more flexibility. So, I get questions in question period now. If I've got concerns on the budget, when you're in the party, you bring those concerns to the finance minister and you get this sort of thoughtful nod, and that's the end of it. But when you're in opposition, especially when you're independent, you can bring serious issues to the community forward into Victoria. And I've really, really appreciated the opportunity to do that. So yeah, every day is a little different, but they're long days. I mean, you've got your meetings in the morning with folks in Victoria, then you get into chamber and debate, and then often you're catching up on what happened back home later on at night. So it's, you're up and going at 7 a.m, and you're not done till 9 at night. They're long days.
I feel you for sure. So you're kind of saying that there's an advantage almost in being an independent right now, because you're not having to almost convince the party that this is a good idea. You can just hear it directly from the community and bring it right to the floor.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how government works these days. Like back in the day, I was talking to a gentleman recently who was a cabinet minister in an Albertan government in the 70s. And he'd talked about the horse trading and the debates and how caucus was where, you really developed those ideas. It doesn't work that way anymore. So the caucus meetings in Victoria, you can have as many as 3 of them a day, half an hour meetings where you talk about what's going on. And usually what it is a minister will say, we're going to announce this in the next hour. You can ask us any questions that you want, but this is baked. This is done. And we want to make sure that you don't screw up and pass the wrong message to the community. And some of the questions are thoughtful. Some of the questions are wacky. But it's really about trying to have a cohesive message and image to the province. I think people expect that when their representative goes to Victoria, that they're fighting for issues in their community and that they're willing to speak about them publicly. You're not allowed. When you're in a party, you vote with the party, you talk the party line, you can't go outside of that box. And so being independent really allows a lot of flexibility. Our ferry system has never been less reliable than it is right now. We've got a highway system. We saw that with the highway to Port Alberni when it got shut down. Nothing's happened with that. It's been years now that we've been talking about alternate routes, whether it's to Port Alberni or from Qualicum Beach to Nanaimo. And the island is silent. The island is traditionally orange, and those voices just are not coming forward right now.
You're hitting at a really core message of kind of the Citizen-Ship YouTube show that I host. And we're all about independent voices and kind of understanding the impact political parties have on our politics. And you hit on something really well I just want to revisit. So I think what a lot of citizens think is that I elect this guy, and this guy goes down, this individual goes down to Victoria, and then they tell the party how they can help the constituency. But what you're saying is it's very much a top-down approach, that it's kind of the party setting the mandate for the individuals.
100%. Yeah, it's all through the Premier's office. So after the election, the Premier will provide mandate letters to all the ministers. That is the policy. But the crazy thing right now in BC politics is we've got a Premier that wasn't elected to the role, the only competition to that role, the party removed the competition, and a Premier who announced soon after becoming Premier, we're going to bring in involuntary care. And then weeks later, flip-flopping and saying, we changed our mind on that. We're not going to do that. And then now just in the last week, again, like the weather vane flipping around here saying, oh, we're going to bring this back in. People expect that the leaders that they elect in their community are going to have a clear idea of what needs to happen to fix problems. And they're going to just keep moving forward on that every single day. And we're not seeing that in British Columbia. Healthcare is now worse off than it was 7 years ago. Cost of living is worse off than it was 7 years ago. We're seeing more street disorder in our community than we were 7 years ago. These are not difficult things to solve. We just need to work together and just focus and have a clear direction on what we need to do to get these solved.
Sure. So I guess addressing EB directly then, the Premier, who are you supporting for Premier as an independent?
My goal is to always represent the community first. So whoever, you got to smile at you. No, it's at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that whatever we're trying to get done here is going to happen. So we're in a really strange spot in provincial politics right now. Both the BC Conservatives and the BC NDP are polling basically neck and neck, 44%. Seat projections are all over the place, but those are weird to project. We've got 5 incumbent MLAs. I think the number right now is 5. That are running as independents. There is a very strong chance that if the BC NDP and the BC Conservatives cannot by themselves hold government, that these 5 independents, possibly a Green or 2, could actually hold the balance of power. And so who that is that would become Premier would be who is able to best represent the values of people in this community, in Peace River, and all throughout the province. And it's about working together to make sure that we get things right and we've got a clear trajectory on where we're going. I don't know where either of these 2 leaders are. I mean, you've got the Premier right now that on one day is saying one thing and another day is saying something else. So it's really hard to say which of these 2 would make a better leader for our province.
And as you say, I guess it'll be interesting. All we'll have to see is when the votes get counted, kind of who are the representatives, and I guess they'll find somebody to lead them at that point.
Exactly.
So I guess we'll kind of move into the campaign now. You have raised a bunch of issues, housing being a big one, healthcare being a big one. What are the top 2 to 3 issues you're hearing from voters as you're canvassing?
I would say the number 1 issue is healthcare. The number 2 issue is healthcare. And the number 3 issue, where I'm going with this, is healthcare.
I see. Yeah.
We have a lot of challenges in this community. Affordability is a big problem. People are very concerned about a provincial deficit, a $9 billion hole in the budget. That's the biggest deficit this province has ever seen. Yeah. During COVID, we had more than $5 billion, but people understood those were unprecedented times. Now we've got a $9 billion hole. That's a big number to get out of. Environmental protections. We've got a need to protect more old growth. There were promises to protect more old growth, but feels like every week we're seeing news stories in the newspaper, online about different old growth forests that are completely being wiped out because we're seeing government inaction. But when I'm knocking on doors, what I'm hearing from people definitely is that we've got a big problem in healthcare. Access to primary care, the hospital in Nanaimo, opened in 1963. It has 360 beds, and yet regularly has more than 400 patients in that hospital, which means you've got 30, 40, 50 or more people in hallways and closets. And then the old patient tower is inadequately ventilated. So you have very poor heating in the winter. In the summer, the air conditioning can't keep up. So you've got patients that are living in really, really inhospitable environments as they're trying to recover. And yeah, it's about tackling those issues. So healthcare for sure, and there's a whole gamut of other challenges.
We'll continue on with healthcare. This is from the kind of the federal perspective, but I read a really good piece by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce calling for essentially international individuals who have certification. They're either doctors or nurses in their country, but their credentials are not being honored here by the Canadian system. So I think that's a big thing, that more in terms of federal jurisdiction. But what can the province really be doing? Is it in terms of just building more infrastructure? Is there training involved? What is your plan to provide healthcare to Parksville and Qualicum?
So that issue of credentialing is more of a provincial issue than federal.
Really?
So
Okay.
the feds will bring people in and they expedite folks who have a doctorate, especially in medicine, to get into the country. When they come here, though, they have to be certified by the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and that is sort of the barrier that they're facing. So, like I said, we've got 6 foreign trained doctors in Oceanside right now. One is a family doctor, and so there is a path there through it's called practice ready assessment. There's a path there that they can get that sped along. But she's been here for, I think, about a year now and has absolutely no idea on how to understand how to get to that first step. And so we're helping her navigate. But the other 5, 2 of them are anesthesiologists, 2 of them are OBGYNs, and one is a gerontologist, a senior doctor. They have absolutely no path to get their existing credentials recognized. They have to go back and retrain as a family medicine doctor. It's even worse than that is that the province right now is in court fighting to prevent these anesthesiologists from getting into our residency spaces. So normally in other provinces, if you're an anesthesiologist, there's a path there to speed along that credential recognition process. Government has said, we need family doctors. So screw all these other professions. Or specialties. We're going to get people into this stream of family doctor. And it means it takes longer. You've got less people actually going through the process. And so what we've done is we've set up a fundraiser to help some of these folks. It costs about 15 grand all in to get your credentials recognized. We've set up a fundraiser to try to help pay for some of the costs, the hard costs for these folks. We're providing them with the contacts and helping them navigate that process. Those doctors, if they're able to come into this community, would attach about 7,000 or 8,000 people. Just these people would attach almost everybody on our wait list right now. But it's more than that. We need to have a place where these doctors can work. We have doctors from across the province coming, kicking tires, looking around. Oceanside's a great community. People want to move here. They want to live here. There is not a team-based environment for a doctor to work in. And so that means they don't have to run their own practice. They can show up and just work the 9 to 5. They can refer internally. You know, you've got a dietitian and a specialist for various things. That doesn't exist here. And that's why we started about 6 months ago on this current project in Parksville. We identified the site, we come up with a plan, and we're moving that forward. We've got another project we're working on in conjunction with the same property owner in Qualicum Beach. Between both of those 2 sites, we would have enough team-based space that every single person in this community could be connected with primary care. We have a plan for recruitment. We did 3 town halls on healthcare this summer. And one of those town halls, we had somebody come up to us and say, I'm a doctor who works at a hospital in Nanaimo, and I get emails from government practically every day saying, Port McNeill ER is going to shut down, $4,500 to take 1 shift in Port McNeill. And so here she is saying, you know, I got young kids. Why don't I take, 4, 5, 6 shifts a month in Port McNeill, quit my job in Nanaimo, and I can spend more time at home with my family. That is not how you manage healthcare. That's not how you manage a limited resource. This is somebody who is actually being paid more to do less. That is not how we get through this. She wants to work in family medicine. She wants to work in this community. So we've got doctors that are interested in practicing here. We've got international doctors who we can get going here. And then we've got doctors, probably once every month or 2 that comes through, kicks a tire, that wants to move here. We have a plan to get people connected with a doctor, and we just need to keep moving forward on that. When I was on council in Qualicum Beach, I had a gentleman in Comox that wanted to put a clinic in Qualicum, privately developed, privately funded, just like a regular doctor's office, but team-based. And he eventually got cold feet because he saw the risk of government changing and provincial and local government investment competing with private dollars. He just didn't want to take that risk on. So to me, the solution is quite simple. You work with nonprofits, you build that community base, you listen to doctors, you listen to the community, and you just focus on getting that solution that people need.
We'll do one more question, then we'll do our closing remarks. I really do want to touch on very briefly this unhoused situation,
Yeah.
especially unsheltered individuals. And I know that a big part of it is just we have to build more housing, and that's in kind of the realm of the contractors. But there is a huge mental health element to this, a huge addiction element to this, and a huge recovery element to this. This is really kind of very in line with kind of my life and my growing up. What is the government's approach, and or I guess specifically, what is your approach here in Oceanside as we see more and more transient individuals coming here? How are we going to be able to provide these people with the aid that they need?
It's something you hear lots, especially as the weather gets colder. People are more aware of it. Especially in Parksville, we hear from a lot of people at the doors who are concerned about the very visible increase in homelessness in our community. I think it's important to take a step back and really get a sense of who these folks are. So a lot of these people have been here for a long time. A lot of these folks that are unhoused, you don't see them. So downtown Parksville, we're right across from Memorial Plaza. That's very visible. And those are some significant hardships that those folks are facing. But when you drive along the waterfront in Qualicum, when you drive around the rural areas and you see people parked on the side of the road sleeping in their car, a lot of those are seniors, people who have lived here for a long time that are homeless, living in their cars. No mental health challenges, no addiction challenges. So we've got Orca Place in Parksville, which is by many measures a success, but they have no place to move people along to. There's no transitional housing as they vacate that space. To me, we've got to look at a couple different spectrums. First, we need a permanent shelter in this community somewhere, whether that's in a rural area, whether that's downtown. We can come up with that decision ourselves together, but we need to make sure that, especially when the weather gets cold, that we've got a place for folks to go. I've seen some of these tiny home communities that have been built in Victoria and Kamloops and other places that, if done well, provide a significant amount of stability to individuals. They're very cost effective to get going. They're not, I wouldn't say they're sort of a humane lifestyle. I mean, often these are 1-bedroom pods and you have a shared bathroom. But I think that's something our community needs. We've got a lot of seniors. We've got a lot of youth now that are unhoused. And to provide that stability so that they can get themselves back into the workforce, tackle some of those addiction issues, I think that's a big deal. On the treatment side of things, Island Health is putting in a 19-bed facility in Parksville. That's moving forward. We managed to get government to actually own the cost of that. The city of Parksville was going to have to pay a big chunk of that bill, and working together with the mayor and the councillors there and Island Health and the province, we were able to get them to take a step back from, forcing Parksville to pay for that, which is good. 19 beds is not enough. We need more detox beds as well. Government is going around opening these facilities. They're very small scale compared to what you'd see in the private sector. And they're not often matched with detox facilities to get people in. And they're not often matched with programs to get once people are out. So the program in Parksville is a 90-day program. 75 days, you're on site, you're open after that. And then the support afterwards is an online program. Often that's not going to work for a lot of folks. And so we may see a revolving door. I can't remember the name of it, but up by Prince George, there's an old army base that was shut down after the war. And a nonprofit society stepped up and said, this would be a good place to give people stability and to allow people to get their lives back on track. I think it's about 50 beds. It's a half an hour from Prince George at a very minimum in the summer. And folks can be there for up to 3 years. I think that's the model that we need to be looking at, is finding some area where we can get some rural property where folks can work. You're in treatment. People still need a purpose. They need hope. They need to have something to move them forward. The one in Prince George has a farm, just something to keep people moving, right? I think that's what we need in our community. It should be nonprofit run. Island Health is a good organization, but they've got 20 or 30,000 employees. This clinic in Parksville is just a small drop, and it's hard for them to focus on the patients when you've got such a big system. And so I would like to see in our community, and I've been working on this plan for the last little while, some sort of a rural facility where you can slowly build it up, where people can get that stability that they need. Not a 90-day program. If somebody has been street entrenched for several years, 90 days is not going to be enough to get their life back on track. And so you need that long runway. There's some provincial funding there, but as a community, we need to step up and say, this is something we need in our community. The province needs to fund it, and we just need to get it done, because it is shameful to see how folks that are living on the street right now are treated, both in community and amongst themselves. We need to do better. We need to do a lot better.
I wish you the best of luck on that project, honestly.
Yeah, no thanks.
And thank you so much for sitting down with us today. There's plenty more to get into, but in sake of time, I guess we'll cut it there. Do you have a final statement for the public? Anything you'd like to kind of close off on?
October 19th is just around the corner. I think that people in this province and people in this community are starting to wake up that parties are looking after themselves and independents provide an opportunity to put your community first. So hopefully people are hearing that call. I hear it all the time at the doorstep, and it's important. Make your vote count, get out there, and let's keep working together.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us today at VidPod, Adam.
Thanks, Clinton.
All the best of the campaign.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Cheers. What a great conversation. You just heard Adam Walker, the MLA from Ladysmith Oceanside area. If you want to hear his competition, you can listen to Stephanie Higginson from the BC NDP. Right here, we have that video for you as well. Feel free to compare and contrast the two politicians to see which one you are going to give your vote to. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to this video and share it with a friend. Somebody who lives in the Oceanside, Ladysmith area and is curious about their options this election cycle. My name is Clinton with the Citi-Zen-Ship Show. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you guys a great afternoon. Cheers.